Hi, and welcome to our latest edition of Newly Listed. I'm your host, Barrington Miller, and today I'm here with CEO Ray Pomroy from SoLVBL Solutions Inc. Hi, welcome to the show, Ray.
Thanks, Barrington. Glad to be here.
We just did a market open, so that's big news.
Yeah, great.
Tell our audience a little bit about SoLVBL.
Well, SoLVBL Solutions, I think you would say it's in the cybersecurity space, but we're different from a lot of other cybersecurity businesses. We really operate sort of inside the business, and we authenticate data at very high speed, so that we allow organizations to know that the data they're using, whether it's for algorithms or to run AI, is actually the data that it's supposed to be, and that nobody has got into their operations and changed the data and modified the data or deleted it and substituted something else. You can do that at very high speed with our service.
Now, when you say the term cybersecurity, a lot of connotations come up of, hackers and
right,
wearing hoodies in the basement, but it's a lot more sophisticated than that. Can you just give our audience a little bit of background on cybersecurity and why it's so important in becoming such a hot commodity?
Sure. I mean, there are a lot of malicious people out there. I mean, sometimes people hack for financial reasons. There are numerous cases where people have put in ransomware and have walked away with Bitcoin in untraceable wallets. But there are just malicious people who come in and alter data just for the fun of doing it. And for businesses that need data to operate, it's very concerning. I mean, if you're operating a financial system, you need to know that the data that you're using is valid data. Otherwise, you can make some very costly errors. A lot of cybersecurity is, if I liken it a little bit to a castle, they put up very high walls, they put a moat round, they have drawbridges, they fire arrows at the people approaching the castle, and they make it very difficult to get into the castle. But in a lot of cases, once you're in, there's not much that happens. So you're free to wander around and you can create havoc on the inside. So if you actually get through the defenses, the cybersecurity defenses, in many ways, it's sort of open field day for people. Now, again, there's been some developments in AI trending, trying to pick things up. We take a totally different approach. We don't think that you can actually stop digital fraud. The best solution is to detect it. So we seal up data, and that seal travels with the data forever. And if anyone modifies, alters, removes, replaces that data, it's immediately detectable. So we don't claim to stop people from doing it. We don't claim to stop the hackers. We just make sure that when you're using data, it's good data and that you can rely on it.
Oh, you answered my second question beautifully as far as what is your differentiator. Tell us a little bit about your team and the people with you.
Yes, well, we've got a good varied background. We've got some fantastic developers here, and obviously on the management side, we're supported by CFO Karim Qureshi, who's been involved in lots of companies going public and has great experience and great wisdom on that side of things. We have Raheem, who was on from OCI, who was on the opening bell and said a few words. He's been through this loads of times, so he's a terrific resource for us. And we have Kaiser Akbar as a lawyer as well, who really is a big help to myself. So that's the sort of executive team. Underneath, we've got a whole series of developers who are very, very talented. In fact, when I joined the company just over a year or so ago, we were very focused on being in the blockchain space, and I was a bit uncomfortable about what we were doing. And in fact, the team themselves had come to the conclusion that blockchains had some limitations. They were slow, they had high latency. Latency means the time it takes to do something, have it actually be done and come back. So if you're buying Bitcoins, it could take up to half an hour before you know you've actually bought the Bitcoin. For most applications, that's way too long. So these guys had already started on thinking about, was there a cleverer, better way of trying to get the immutability of a blockchain, but at a higher speed, and much easier for people to operate. And in fact, that's really what we've devised. We've moved on from the blockchain, and we've tried to correct what we saw as the limitations, high latency, slow speed. And we have a system now which is a combination of a blockchain, but cryptographic, very clever use of cryptographic primitives, so that we can now operate at very high speeds and very low latencies. And that opens the door to a lot more commercial applications.
No, that is fantastic. And for our audience, if you like that and other content, we recently produced an episode of Tech Tuesday titled Blockchain with one of our colleagues, Anna Sarin. You should check it out on CSE_TV on YouTube. Now, let's move to the future. What would current investors and soon to be new investors have to look forward to with Solvable?
Well, obviously, we've got to convince organizations to use our software. So we're focusing on three verticals. We're focusing on the financial world, as you would expect us to do. But we also believe there's a role for us to play in the digital chain of custody, which sort of opens up the world of forensics and police. And also, I'm not sure if your viewers and listeners are aware of next generation 911, which is it's a big movement that's going on to change 911 from just being a landline connection, but into one that can cope with texts, photographs, tweets, Facebooks, whatever. And a lot of that stuff may be used as evidence, and therefore there's a need to protect and to authenticate that data. So we see an opportunity in the NG911 space, the police space, and the financial space, and that's really where we'll be focusing. And I guess the milestone for us is to get into a trial situation where we get, people in those verticals to actually start trying out our software, and actually seeing for themselves what we can actually do, and then leading on to sales thereafter.
Well, thank you so much, Ray. And thank you to the Solvable team for choosing the CSE as your home designated stock exchange.